Today we are going to learn some of the key topics which is going to be covered to the Excel online classes on the QTP. As we know, like QTP basically stands for Quick Test Professional, which is a functional testing tool. So it provides some of the features. It has got some of the basic features which can be highlighted and which can be featured with the help of these many below topics. These are QTP basics, features of Quick Test Professional. What are the recording modes? Uh, so, what are the different sorts of recording modes in QTP? Either there could be a normal recording mode, there is an analog recording mode, and there is a low level recording mode. So, how the recording proceeds in terms of normal recording mode, in an analog recording mode, and in a low level recording mode. And then about the concept of running the scripts, how do we run the scripts through QTP, and running the script in the sense like whatever the scripts that we have created, the automated scripts, how do we run those scripts to perform our functional testing. What is test object model? There is something called automation object model. So what is the model on which our entire framework is been built for a particular application? So what is that approach? So we are going to cover that particular thing with the help of the test object model. And what is synchronization? So synchronization basically says like something like if we have put some amount of timing or seconds, so it waits for a particular object to appear within that point of time. So that is something called as synchronization, because the application is going to behave in a different way in some different sorts of environment. So if we're accessing some remote server, so there are quite chances like at that point of time the application may not respond so much fast. So when we navigate from one page to another page, so it may take some quite amount of time and coming to the next page. So basically QTP, as it won't be able to identify that the new page has come or not, or whether the new object has appeared or not. So QTP is going to handle all such situations with the help of synchronization. And there is something called as view in QTP. That is also one of the topics, like what is the expert view and what is the keyword view. So that is also one thing that is going to be covered with the help of the QTP. And what are checkpoints, how we are going to handle the checkpoints, and what are the different sorts of checkpoints. Uh, so this is also one of the very important topic in terms of QTP. Means these checkpoints are basically corresponding to some objects, and it is going to compare those object properties as a runtime object property compared to the actual object property that is going to be stored into the QTP in the help of checkpoints. So, and then we are going to have a session wrap up. So these are basically some important topics corresponding to the quick test professional. And these are some of the good features, like it happens to be a fast test creation, then there's an easier maintenance, then it's a powerful data driven capability, like it provides a data table approach of testing where you can perform a particular application to be automated. You have got n sets of data, and this n sets of data is going to be feed into the Excel file, and QTP is going to take those sets of data from the Excel file and going to feed into the application. So during runtime it is going to take all those data and it is going to perform a data driven type of testing. In the same way, there are something called as checkpoints. There are different sorts of checkpoints. Those checkpoints corresponding to checkpoints, what are the actual property value and what is the expected property value. That particular thing is also going to be handled with the help of QTP, with the help of the checkpoints. And what is the language, what is the programming language that is being supported by QTP is something called as VB script language. So this is also a very important part from the QTP quick test professional automation point of view, like what is the language which it supports. And there is something called as smart identification, which comes from the object perspective, like how the QTP is going to recognize the object if in case it is not able to identify that particular object with the help of the mandatory properties. And then there comes the recovery scenario. So what is the use of the recovery scenario, how we are going to create the recovery scenario, how we are going to store the recovery scenario, how we are going to associate the recovery scenario with our test scripts, and how we are going to call the recovery scenario. So these are all different sorts of topics which can be covered under this recovery scenario mechanism. Then there is something called as auto documentation. So whenever we are going to write a set of scripts, we are going to do the execution for that particular set of scripts, and we are going to generate the result. So that particular result is going to be an auto documented results, where all the result tree will be generated and with the caption and with all the strings. So something called as auto documentation is there along with the QTP. And what are the different sorts of recording mode? As we told in the earlier, like there is something called as normal recording mode. So what is that normal recording mode, what is analog recording mode, and what is low level recording mode? So normal is something which can be identified from the name itself. Like in this particular thing, the objects and the operations are performed in the application. The mode is a default and it takes full advantage of the quick test object model, and it is going to recognize the object with the help of some standard set of properties and values. Analog recording mode is something like it is going to identify the mouse and keyboard operation for that particular object. So what way is the mouse movement, what is the keyboard operation that you're going to perform, it is going to record that particular thing in terms of analog recording mode. And when the comes to the part of the low level recording mode, then we can say that when the QTP is not able to identify the objects in low, then it is going to make use of the low level recording mode. So and then we can see like what are the different sorts of way in which we run the scripts. So basically there's a normal mode and there's a fast mode. So in terms of normal mode, whenever we are going to do the execution, so we can see the cursor of the QTP on each different lines of script which goes on navigating from one line to another line. So in this we can easily see the execution, and even it's good for debugging purpose also. And the other way is the fast mode of running the scripts, where we don't able to see the execution marks. So that is also one important topic from the QTP running point of view. Then it comes to the object model. So it's an structured representation of software objects that comprises the implementation of system or application, defines a set of classes and interfaces together with their properties, methods and events and their relationships. So this is a very generic example of the object model, but we are going to cover more deep into the object model, like how the QTP is going to record the set of object properties with the help of the object model. And then we can say about the test objects, what are the standard objects in the QTP, like what are the types of objects like QTP supports, like the standard Windows object, ActiveX object, Visual Basic objects, web objects, utility objects, supplemental objects. So these are all different sorts of test objects. So we have covered something called as checkpoints also earlier. So what are the different types of checkpoints which QTP supports, which can be also covered in details, like how we do the recording of those particular checkpoints, and that can be seen through the online demo. So the checkpoints with the QTP supports are the below, like a standard checkpoint, text checkpoint, image checkpoint, page checkpoint, database checkpoint, bitmap checkpoint, table checkpoint, text area checkpoint, accessibility checkpoint, and XML checkpoint. So QTP supports the functioning of the test environment in all the windows like web, .NET, etc. And it uses the VB script as its scripting language, and facilitates easy step for data-driven testing and provides auto documentation about easy test steps. So basically there are three types of recording possible in through QTP. They are the normal recording mode, analog recording mode, and the low level, as we stated earlier. So uh, we have already told, like there is something called as normal recording mode and the fast mode of running the scripts. So we can do the settings of that particular thing through the run settings objects, which comes into the QTP window. We have to go to the run and settings part, and we can change the mode of running the scripts. We can either make it slow or we can make it fast, depending on the requirement of the user. So if we cover a single line of definition about the checkpoint, then we can say checkpoint is a verification point that compares the current value of the specific property with the expected value of that particular property. Here the property comes and talks about the property of the object which is being recorded at the time of recording that particular thing into the object repository, and the expected value is going to be compared to the actual value at the time when we are going to run the scripts, and the two values are going to be compared and seen whether the two values are matching or not matching. So this is something which is going to be covered with the help of the checkpoints, and it is an inbuilt feature of the QTP, so it's quite easy to use. It's a very handy approach, so we can use it very easily, and we can have a comparison factor when we are doing the running of the scripts. So this is basically a kind of functional testing that we are performing. So this is all about the expert view and the different sorts of um, recording the objects. So we can cover all these topics, and there are many other topics like a regular expression, and what are the object repository hierarchy, how do we are going to store the objects into the QTP, what is descriptive programming. So all these topics can even be covered with the help of the QTP tutorial classes. So coming over the descriptive programming, it is something like when we don't want to use the QTP object repository, then we are going to make use the descriptive programming approach, where we are going to identify that particular object with the help of the descriptive programming approach, where the object is independent of the object repository, and we are going to provide some set of object properties as a format of regular expression. And with that particular format, the QTP is able to identify that particular object. So there is some way how we are going to use it in our scripts. How do we write the scripts with the help of descriptive programming, and what is the approach that we follow. So that is also one very important topic with the help of descriptive programming approach. So now coming to the regular expression. Regular expression is something like we are trying to identify a particular object, and that particular object is a very long string, and we are trying to make that particular long string into a short string. So we can we can use some method or convention like dot star, and so that QTP is able to identify that particular object with the help of the smaller string. So that is also possible with the help of the quick test professional. It supports the regular expression mechanism, and how we are going to use it while storing the objects into the repository, what is the way. So that particular thing can also be handled with the help of the quick test professional version 10 and above. So all these important topics can be covered with the help of this particular QTP online classes.